I'll call the Candiota County Board of Commissioners work session to order. Today is, what day of the week is it? Thursday, January 2nd. And the purpose of the meeting today is to continue the process of developing board operating guidelines and or rules and or whatever we end up with a moniker on this thing. And just by way of review, what we did last time and what I'd like us to continue to do, it worked pretty well actually. We went through, started in the beginning, and you guys have copies of, you that weren't here have copies of what we did, like Roman numeral 1 overview, letter A. It's got a circle around it. That means that we read every one of these last time, and we will again today, but not the ones that are circled. The ones that are circled will pass over. And then
Mr. Chair, if I may, and I'm just assuming everybody actually read through this already, I'm hoping,
yeah.
so.
I mean, we can always go back to them, but let's
Yeah.
go through the ones we haven't dealt with first.
Sounds
and
good.
then,
Yep.
at the very end. So, for example, A, we circled the purpose. B, statement of principle. We did not. I don't know why we didn't, but we did not. And so that's where we'll start today. And I'll do like I did last time. I'll read it. And in some of these, um, we circled parts of it, but not everything. So under Roman numeral 1, letter B, statement of principles, the operating rules intend to strike a procedural balance that considers all principles and enunciates a specific process by which these principles interact and work. The rules are representative of the organization's vision, mission, and core values. Kaneohe County has implemented a comprehensive statement of organized principles. The 7 essential components of these principles include governing Kaneohe County. Elected officials work in tandem with a strong, professionally managed workforce to accomplish the goals and objectives of the county. 2, commitment to our customers. Kaneohe County government will provide fiscally prudent, risk-sensitive, cost-effective solutions, with the objective being to serve those who use our services to the best of our ability. And 3, commitment to staff. Kaneohe County government is committed to providing a positive and healthy work environment. We are committed to preparing and educating our workers to provide quality services. Number 4, expectations of each other. We expect honesty, integrity, and commitment to the values of our organization without regard for position or title. Number 5, leading county government. Our goal is to create an organizational culture which fosters creativity, responsibility, and willingness to take reasonable risks with an acceptance of responsibility, accountability, and authority. Number 6, measuring government performance. We will monitor key performance indicators in an effort to continuously improve our services to our citizens. And number 7, open government. The county board in Kaneohe County will be recognized as an organization with a high standard of excellence. We will accomplish this through engaging the citizens and local government agencies by using as transparent as the law allows, by being as transparent as the law allows, using all media types to present easy to understand documents. So is there anything anybody would like to modify there?
If I can say one thing, the reason why this isn't in my draft, the key implemented statements, is because these are from the previous county, that these are their board of commissioner principles. So
Sure.
it's somewhat of like a mission, it might be your values that you would include there. So I don't know if you would like to leave this out until I am bringing forth a strategic planning session with Dave Onmuck at the second meeting in January for us, the board and myself, to start working on more of a plan and work on those mission goals and values and kind of what are our short-term and long-term goals. So this would be something if you wanted to adopt as the Candiota County Board, or this could be something you could leave in blank until you five figure out what your values are for the county government functioning moving forward.
That's a good point. I was
Yeah.
wondering, okay,
But
that
these-
makes sense now to me, but
Yeah, but some of these are principles that they don't change.
yeah, yes.
Go ahead.
No, finish up.
I was just gonna say, I would recommend that we deal with it today and then we can amend it, because we can amend this anytime. Because I'm sure that any strategic planning won't be completed till well into the summer or maybe fall. So,
And Mr. Chairman, yeah, as you were saying too, and that looking at this, that's how we want to be anyway. You know, when you talk about honesty, integrity, and commitment to our values and organization, and foster all these things. So I think we'll get there again as a group. You know, going through that strategic planning, which we got to do. But if we put it in now, we can always say, and maybe want to add that, or even add
Yeah,
in our
that's what I'm
mission
saying.
statement or whatever.
We can amend it. Unless somebody has strong objections to adopting it today and we aren't adopting anything today, this is still a draft, it'll be a draft if we have a final document.
I think we'd be okay leaving that in the draft for now.
Okay,
I think that potentially, we might have some further questions later on. I don't see us getting to a point of a finished draft, anytime quickly. I'm sure that we'll get it done by the first quarter.
yeah, and I don't see anything here that, by the way, we don't have to worry about being recognized today unless we get,
Okay.
I
too many
figured.
people speaking at one time. I don't, jumped out here as something that you don't wanna change much, but, so last time we circled, this time we're gonna put a box around it, square box around it, so we know which one's from which date. So, the effective date we circled last time, but underneath the amendments to the operating rules, I put a star there. Let me read it first. Any member of the county board may initiate action to amend the operating rules. Amendments to the operating rules may also be initiated by the county administrator. During the statutory meeting, the county board shall review and amend if necessary and adopt the operating rules for the year. At any time throughout the year, the county board may amend or suspend the operating rules by an affirmative vote of the members. Changes shall be effective immediately upon passage. And the statute references included in the text are current as of the adoption of the operating rules. Any changes in statute or law affecting the rules are effective immediately and will be reflected in the next adopted update of the rules. What I had done in my mark, I wrote this a long time ago. It says the board shall review and amend if necessary the operating rules in the organizational meeting and once per year, but we have a pretty full organizational meeting. And going through this, I think it's a good idea every year. It helps us, especially if we have a new board member. Kind of forces everybody to read it again and review it, but I don't know if we want to do it in the organization. Yeah, I think we should do it early in the year, so when we do have elections, it's so.
I wouldn't want to throw it on somebody in their first meeting.
No, because we're doing committees
Right.
and all that stuff.
I mean, if
so-
it's a new board member, that would be kind of cool. Right,
Yeah, and they can read it.
They would get their packet.
they're in their packet.
So, but we should define when we do it. So what about the second regular meeting of the year?
I don't,
I
I
don't,
guess I don't necessarily know. I think, we've kind of, we have that policy committee and 2 commissioners sit on that.
Mhm.
Every policy should be reviewed annually anyways. This year kind of got pushed to the wayside, but the 2 commissioners who sit on that committee could easily review it then, and if they feel it needs to be brought back to the board.
Well, I think this one is our document. So we, as a 5-member board, along with you, should be doing this one.
But was that ever adopted?
What's that one?
That,
No, but if we adopt them, it's our document. It's board operating guidelines, which is different than employee policy.
I don't know, though, that it precludes us from putting it through the policy committee necessarily.
No, but the reason for reviewing it every year is to refresh our memory of what we're doing. It's not so much to find changes, but to remind ourselves, about our principles and our duties. That's the major reason for doing that.
But it could be reviewed annually, not at a public meeting. I mean, you could all just review it,
Right.
send it out as an email and review it once a year.
How often does it actually get done when we do it that way? I think we should do it as a board, like we're doing it right now, so that we see it all.
I know. I go back to we're all adults, and if we're serious about our job, we better do it. I mean, that's, I understand what you're saying, Roger, but I think we do have a responsibility to do it ourselves too.
Well, I can go either way with it, but I'd prefer that we, once a year as a board, we go through it, especially if we have a new member. You know, if we have a new, because they might have a question saying, well, what does this mean?
I do have a question regarding the suspension of the rules. I'm really unclear as to if we're going to adopt operating rules, why we would ever need to suspend them, and I'm hoping to get some insight into that.
Is that in this thing?
Well, yeah,
do?
it's mentioned in here. In the third paragraph, the county board may amend or suspend the operating rules.
Well, I think Robert's rules does allow for suspension of the rules, but by a vote. In fact, that was my other note there.
Yeah.
If we do it, do we do it as a majority or as a 2/3 vote?
That's a 2/3 vote.
Okay.
That was the notes I was looking back.
And that's
It's 2/3.
you're talking about,
To suspend.
To suspend.
and that's to suspend the rules for an issue, right? At that time, not to suspend all.
Well,
the
and
rules.
that's the other thing that I was looking at.
Board of five will be 2/3. You'd have-
Again, it'd have to be 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have that on.
That's just how it operates.
That should almost be specified that way.
Yeah, that's how
Why,
Robert's does
why,
it.
why deviate? Well, I mean, what do you do if you say 80% one member's absent? Now it's a 4 board member. Now 3 out of 4 is 75%.
Yeah.
Or 2 out of 3 is 66%. So
Depends upon who you have for a quorum that day. I do want clarification though, how, in terms of how that's actually used, is that issue specific or is that we're going to suspend going forward until there's a new amendment?
My understanding is
issue specific.
issue specific. And we rarely ever come across that, I believe, but it's there.
It's put in there to give you a out.
And any example as to why we would want to do that? I mean, if we have our processes already in place.
Well, in Roberts, let's say we have a presenter that comes to us and is asking us, shows up at the board meeting. We've had this happen, and to I think all of our frustration, shows up at a board meeting making a request for funds, and we're sort of blindsided by it. And if we would adopt a policy that says we need more time, or we need 2 reads on those things, we can suspend the rules. I think of the time when Aaron Backman says he didn't have another opportunity on the daycare thing. We could then suspend the rules to say, for this issue, we will suspend the 10-day rule or 5-day rule, whatever, if we have a rule. That's the reason you have the ability to suspend it.
But who's going to remember that is my only question, because in the heat of the moment, how are we ever going to remember that?
It's in Robert's rules.
Yeah, well, I know that.
If an issue comes up on the agenda or whatever, and we see that, one of us could actually bring that up as we suspend the rules for this, and then there would be a detailed discussion, just like we're doing now, and we'd all would try to understand what that issue was that we'd want to suspend the rules for, and then as a board we decided. So it's just an option that instead of being stuck on some issue, and I can't give a good example at all on this, but it is Robert's Rules of Order. This is the way you can do business, and that needs to be done, but we have a rule saying you can't do that, and that's basically what you're saying. You have to put it off or whatever.
Well, in that instance that Roger talked about, didn't we approve the funding anyway?
Right, because we didn't have any rule.
But there's no rule in Robert's rules on that you have to hear something twice.
I use that as an example.
But yeah,
Right, but that's
not a good
not
example.
suspending a rule.
No, that's-
Suspending a rule within this language would mean you are not allowing a discussion or you're moving something forward, not following Robert's rules. That situation was more of like how the board, I mean, hearing something twice, but that, to me, a suspension of a rule would be deviating from Robert's rules.
I would like to ask Shane,
Right.
could you give us an example of how that fits in? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, maybe.
But you know more about this.
These issue pop up that you want to deal with.
Yeah.
The idea for having something like this is you don't know what contingencies may happen, so you build in structures that allow you to properly do so.
In 12 years, we've never-
And you may never have to do it,
Right. You-
but
so having it in
Language
there
is
is
in-
very little,
It's
does
not
very little.
really a big issue, yeah.
I guess the question is more,
two-thirds obviously signals a supermajority, which means
We could add that in.
yeah, that's all, because
On this one here, it says of at least 3 members.
oh,
So we could put it that way. Clarify.
so
Well, if you're going by Roberts, though,
You gotta have 4, right?
2/3.
I mean, it's a policy. We can do what we want on this one. Whether we do it as a majority or or 2/3. For, I guess for consistency, I would go with 2/3 because that's what Roberts does. when we suspend. So we can add that, real,
The reason why I'm saying is, what if we have a board meeting where there's only 3 of us?
it only takes 2, which is both majority and,
But that might be a situation where the other ones, if they were here, they would vote otherwise.
and they should have been.
I know they should.
That's what happens, and sometimes they can't, but that's the way it happens on, or then you can motion to, postpone it to a different date.
Hopefully, in those situations, I like to go back to the previous one, we talked about honesty, integrity, and so forth,
Right,
that we don't try to push something through because somebody's not here.
right.
And I mean, that's all of a sudden that's contrary to what we're looking at. So hopefully that wouldn't happen, but yes, it could. And
Falls into that honesty part.
yes, yeah. Yeah.
So, you okay with it, Dwayne?
I guess so, I'm just bringing that up.
Yeah. So we would add upon,
Is Steve okay with that? You had a concern.
Yeah, I'm still marinating, letting that marinate a little.
on the organizational part, review it once a year as a board. Are we okay with that, or are we gonna just?
I would leave it vague to me. I wouldn't make it a specific date.
What about if we have a do? Well, I didn't say it. Well, once a year, but
Yeah.
we should do it early in the year on that. And then
but the organizational,
Uh,
is that the question? The organizational?
Well, I said it wouldn't be fair to a new board member, Shane, if you put it on to him the first meeting he's in the room. I mean, that would be a horrible feeling.
Not only that, but our first meeting.
is really full on. That's why we're talking about not doing it on the organizational meeting.
Doing what on the organization?
Reviewing this document.
Oh, no, I thought you were saying not during the first organizational meeting at the beginning of the year.
Right, right. And I'm okay even every 2 years, or even when we do it, we should do it ourselves. But in a year when we have a new board member, we should do it as a board.
Can we just put language in that during the first quarter of each year? We would do it.
I think that would be fair to do it that way. The biggest thing is to make sure that this is put in that new person. I just dumped mine out yesterday, actually, the new person's 3-ring binder, because it is, I mean, that is still good things to go back and look for.
So first quarter of the year. And then the 2/3 vote to suspend the rules.
Yeah, I think you,
So we could put a box around Roman numeral 2. County board organization on Roman numeral 3, A, B, C, D, pretty much all driven by statute. E, officers. Did not get circled. The county board at its statutory meeting, the first Tuesday after the first Monday of each year, elects from its members a chair and a vice chair. The chair presides at the county board meetings, decides on questions of order, subject to the vote of the county board, and signs all documents requiring signature on the board's behalf. The chair's signature, attested by the county administrator, is binding as the signature of the county board. The board elects from its membership a vice chair at the same time and place at the same time and place, and in the same manner as provided for the election of the chair. The vice chair performs the duties of the chair when the chair is unable to perform those duties. If the chair and vice chair are absent from any meeting, the members present shall choose one of their members as temporary chair, and all documents requiring the signature of a county board shall be signed by a majority of it and attested to by the county administrator. That's by statute. At the statutory meeting, and if applicable during the year, the chair of the county board shall have the authority to recommend committee chairs, appointments of members of the county board to standing committees and other county board member appointed committees, organizations, and groups, subject to the approval of the board. I put a line under that because to me that was a little confusing. The chair of the county board shall have the authority to recommend committee chairs. What committees are we talking about? Actually?
Well, I actually highlighted that same paragraph, and my only thought is that
Internal committees?
I don't know about that. That's a good question. I didn't even think about that. But it's the chair can recommend this, but so can anybody else. Recommend they would so and so or be it too. I would think because it goes back to the board approval. So even if the chair recommends somebody, doesn't mean. If I'm not chair, I couldn't say, well, I know also so-and-so has expertise. Since that person has an accounting background, that this person might be the chair of the finance committee or whatever. And that's just an example.
At the end, it's just subject to approval by the board.
Exactly.
Right, but the part that is a little unclear to me is, so it says standing committees, which is, I would guess, the internal, right? And personnel, policy, whatever. But it wouldn't make that much sense for the chair to make a recommendation for, say, Glacial Lake Sewer, Sanitary Sewer and Water, or, Painesville Planning Commission. So those external committees, maybe we just clean that up by saying internal versus external.
Well, and I see in the document that Kelsey has provided us on page 29 of 34 under H, board committees, addresses standing committees, which are listed as building, finance, personnel, policy, safety, and technology.
What number is that again?
I'm curious if that would be the
definition.
the definition here of which committees. I mean, certainly it says in here 2 standing committees and other county board member appointed committees, organizations, and groups.
I would just leave it at standing committee.
That's kind of what I was wondering.
Yeah, and then those other ones, we've done
We
it.
should be arriving at a consensus.
Yeah, because it wouldn't make sense for Dwayne or you to be on the Painesville Planning Commission.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's more so at the beginning, at the statutory meeting, at the big organizational meeting, if the board chair, if applicable, wishes to call a certain person the chair of a committee,
Mm-hmm.
he has that authority to do so at the statutory / organizational meeting. I'm thinking that's basically what this is saying.
It's
And
subject
so-
to the approval of the entire.
Yes. So if we're at the organizational meeting and Rod or whoever the board chair is wishes to have a chair, be specifically someone on a standing committee, he or she can make that recommendation with approval by the county board.
Yep.
Why wouldn't that committee elect their own chair? Or?
Probably would never happen. It's just one of those things that's in here that if the chair if there were that situation, just like the suspension, maybe would only use this once in 20 years. But if there's a situation where the chair needs to, he feels that, okay, we've had maybe say like a building committee down the road.
Mm-hmm.
You could say, I would like Kelsey, the administrator, to be the chair of that committee, or I would like whoever is always the board chair to be the chair of that committee. I mean, it
Right.
very could happen.
That's what I was thinking. It would
But
be an
it's-
internal committee like that, right?
And I've never been at one of those committees where somebody's chaired the meeting.
No.
Well, you just sit around the table and you usually conduct it, but it's an option. I would say let's put a period at the end of standing committees, after standing committees. And then on the other county board member, the other committees, make a statement about, by consensus.
It does say that though, subject to
Subject to
by the
approval,
board.
yeah.
So I don't know if I guess for me, I wouldn't have any changes in there. I think it just needs to be explained where
Right.
everybody's understanding it the
Right.
same way.
Gotcha.
And I think just by discussing it here and getting the clarifications, that's what we're doing.
Right, so you're not all reading it and proceeding it differently. If that's the understanding and how everybody's reading it.
I would be okay with
But if this was enforced next week, and we're going through the committees, and Steve is making a recommendation for, again, I'll use the planning and zoning in Painesville, you wouldn't really know, who to name as the committee chair, or you can,
Well, I'm pretty sure it's you.
not on that planning and zoning, I'm not. I'm a member of the committee, but I'm not the chair of that committee.
No, not the chair. No, and we wouldn't have
I think it's
stand,
more
we wouldn't
internal
have the
committee.
standing to
That's
do
what I'm
that
saying,
anyway.
let's just separate the two, and let's say external committees by consensus.
I don't know. I think the language is fine.
But external committees would have their own rules, so,
Yep.
I mean, I don't think you wanna say that by consensus either, because it's not,
Subject
We don't
to
have the authority for
No.
that committee, right?
Right.
So it's really just
you gotta
basically,
just leave it probably the way it's.
subject to
worded.
approval works.
Yep, that's, I think, how you have to leave it, 'cause
Well, when you,
The
when you
reality
use the
is-
word and, though, then you include all the other committees, but whatever, I'm not enough to fall on my sword over, so.
Okay.
Leave it just the way it is.
Yep.
Letter F, compensation. County board members receive as compensation for services an annual salary as set by resolution of the county board. The salary must be established prior to the end of the preceding year and is effective January 1st of the new year. The resolution shall contain a statement of the new salary as defined on an annual basis and must be published in the official county newspaper and one other newspaper in the county. This is all by statute. Prior to the effective date of the new salary, each county board member shall have the option to accept or reject any salary increase in writing in a form prescribed by the county board. In the next paragraph, the only reason we didn't box that or circle that one, county board members shall also receive a per diem for attendance at assigned committee. We eliminated that.
Yep. That's just a strike through of that entire
Yeah.
paragraph.
However,
yeah, I was gonna bring that up, and this
is that in the resolution that who was chair when we switched over from per diems to straight salaries?
So
I think it
might
was
have
you.
been- might have been me,
it's in this one. But
yeah, I'm thinking,
no, here.
And it went into effect 21
It's in this
no,
here.
that year, I think,
that year.
yeah. I think that was the year of it. And I was wondering, so do we wanna put language in there, or do we wanna change that?
Still under board organization.
Because I think we had some language, or we do have some language that, that we do get, if we get a per diem from an outside organization, and I think at that time, there's some commissioners that wanted to be able to continue to get that. And so the board said at that time, that could be in effect. So, but I think it should be in the language here, if we continue, or we're gonna drop that and say you cannot take any per diems.
I think, first of all, wasn't that in the resolution that we just passed last month? Because, I mean, to me, you can make that determination at the end of the year, each and every year as a board.
Yeah.
You know, I don't
Which
know that it needs
determination,
to be in here, whether or not you're allowed to accept, per diems from those other organizations.
I think it was part of the resolution where we switched from one method of being reimbursed to another method. There was language in that, because I know one of the Dwayne, I think you were here at the time.
You're gonna have to find that.
Yeah, we can find that and insert that in here. Because one of the challenges that we might face, like when you go to workforce, you're gone all day long. And if force pays, you're gonna say, I don't wanna be on that damn committee, guys. If I can't take the per diem workforce pays. So that's why we kept it in there to encourage people to serve on those committees. So what we can do here is the county board member shall also receive, we could just strike that, so eliminate that paragraph. And then insert the language from that resolution of whenever we had moved from the former method of payment to the current method. So we can't check the box on this one because it needs some work. Does that make sense? To find that language from that time when we switched over and insert that.
Well, yeah, if it was a resolution, we should follow that.
And if there wasn't a resolution, we'll have to create the language. But I think it's in that.
It was in the minutes, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure it was an official
Yeah, I'm-
resolution, but this was
Well, we could, yes,
Cause I've
yes.
never done that.
You don't. Right.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't be any per diem language in it.
You mean,
They're for compensation.
Yeah,
Because you're not receiving per diem, so.
no, from the county. We aren't receiving per diems from the county. If workforce pays a per diem, the way I recall the language is you could accept that.
AMC,
If AMC pays
for
a per diem,
example.
you can accept that. If Prime West pays a per diem, you can accept that. If United Community, do they not?
But are you on a committee that does? I think that workforce used to do it.
UCAP maybe does, but I have never collected a per diem for that. I collect mileage, I think, from.
I don't know if that is,
Yeah.
that's,
That was the intent of the language, is to allow you,
but
if,
that should be, then that should have been in the resolution.
yes.
Yep.
And
mean,
not
we-
the intent, because that's a pretty sticky thing. If you're already getting a salary
I know.
based off your
Well,
average per diem, and then you're gonna be getting a per diem.
As long as it's not paid by the county.
Still,
There's a feeling of perception of
This is
you're
our
double
deal.
dipping.
right, no, I understand that's your deal.
Yeah.
But that is not what you all are doing then.
We gotta all be on the same page.
Well-
when you came on board, I talked to you about this right away. So this is,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sneak anything through, but
No,
I've been
And it's
involved in this
unfortunate that
discussion,
you
and
want it collected, it's unfortunate
But
that
then,
it haven't been.
but then we gotta know which ones we can collect. if we're doing that sort of thing.
and or new ones that come up. That was one of my questions too. You get committees, and all of a sudden a committee things may change, and the committee chooses to do that and offers other commissioners from other boards, and it gets really awkward when you say on a board, "Oh, we don't want per diems,"
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
and then that's awkward. But it's also awkward to take it. I just feel really uncomfortable. Well, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
You're probably one of the few that don't, but we all
Yeah.
could, you know.
Yeah, I have. Cause I felt like, cause we weren't accepting per diem, that I just didn't do it.
So in that
Well,
one,
if you have a
I don't know
choice,
which ones they could or not.
If
maybe
you have-
we'll get in
yeah.
trouble, so.
and there's a good reason for reviewing this on an annual basis, because the language, and Shane was shaking his head before, that we put in there when we moved over, was that you could allow those external, that we could be allowed to accept.
Yeah, I never understood it as excluding when it's an external entity providing the per diem.
Right.
Mhm.
As long as the county.
I never understood that either, and I guess,
So I guess I'm saying
You're agreeing with what I'm saying. So,
well, you're saying it's okay. We don't have to worry about that.
Well,
Unless we want to address it.
So-
It needs to get
No, I
put
mean,
in
it's
here, like
fair.
you said.
obviously, but I'm just saying the way I understood was it's an outside entity
Yeah.
board providing the per diem, then that's acceptable to receive, but
Well, then which ones are outside in?
that I don't know.
well, anyone that offers per diem,
So if UCAP, for example,
you can,
I don't know if they do or not.
workforce. I'm sure workforce does, don't they?
I would imagine so. You know, serving on the AMC Board of Directors, we're offered a per diem.
Right.
Cause like when I go to,
CPT,
CPT,
yeah.
they hand it out there, and I have to ask every time cause I forget. And, so, this one has to
Woodland
get
Centers.
parked, and let's look at the, let's dig up that resolution. um, For what the resolution says regarding per diems.
I think I did find that, and I remember when you just came on, that
Dwayne,
we
you wanna know
dug
how
that
much
up
money left
out of the minutes, out of the minutes, and
That's
we
not
saw
the
that.
issue.
Yeah, we'll have to
I
look
just
at it.
don't. I almost think if we're gonna go that route, then you should almost declare it per diem.
No, cause we're not paying it, Dwayne.
Yeah, I know, well.
That was the point of it is to. And
It's an outside entity. I
But
think
which
that's,
ones are the outside?
And
Are
it's,
they the ones that hand out the expense report? or
Yeah,
expense sheet?
yeah. And the other part of it was, remember, it was an auditing headache. Those per diems were audited. That's why we went away from it. And the goal was to quit paying them from the county side because every year it was an auditor's nightmare.
I remember Larry was struggling with this as well. And part of us struggling is that, well, you know, we just can't really say, well, just turn it in to the county because you know, they're gonna, you know, a taxing on that and FICA, and then what do you turn in? What's left over after taxes or whatever? Because they give it to you, we just can't turn it in. So, but we can actually say no, and that's an option we can go at.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, for example, Woodland Centers now is offering a per diem and it's healthy. And certainly they should be doing that. But you know, for those of us who are right in town here, I felt kind of silly when it first came up and you know, here, fill this out, and it's like, no thanks.
they're not offering it yet.
Hmm?
They're not offering I didn't think that was settled.
I thought they were.
Anyway, let's move.
Well, actually, I talked to them about, you know, do we have the option of turning it down? But that money could be put into a scholarship for education for any staff that wanted to
Mhm.
go forward, and we just give up our per diem or use it that way. And that's the way I use. I do get two of these, and I do get two of these, and I give that money away, and I kind of enjoy doing it. And you don't have to go far to see where I give it away. The YMCA, that banner is $1,500 I give away. I get $500 I give to the Historical Society, and the list goes on and on. I give away a lot more than that, but that's an option I choose then because I feel like I'm double dipping, and I feel well, but I also then can do that, and I can give extra to church too. But that's not the reason to do it. I know that.
So it's up on the screen now.
I was gonna say, if I can find the resolution.
You can? You can or can't?
we can find anything.
I think it was just in the minutes. I don't
Yeah.
know if it was a resolution.
In addition, commissioners may accept outside per diems not covered by Candy, Ohio County for service on joint powers and state and national county related boards.
Okay. So it
You
is.
Pretty
don't,
straightforward.
you are not doing that. So you-
No,
Yeah. Okay, so where?
Star for you, Dwayne.
That was 2022?
21.
21. It's 21.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
2022.
Yeah.
But
So it must have been a resolution.
Yeah, it was
Yep, good.
21-53.
And that's maybe what we talked about.
You know, I told everybody that we don't collect per diem, so then now I'm kinda going, oh.
Not automatically. You put what committees you want, you know, and
So,
For me, that's weird, cause my pioneer, the library one, we couldn't be collecting per diem. That's just like, sometimes it's like 20 minutes.
right.
so the other question, okay, so
So if the others are doing that,
if the other commissioners are doing that,
yeah.
just says you could, like,
Yeah, I would just put that language.
just put
Just
it,
drop that language right in there. That resolution goes into that spot.
well, I wouldn't put the whole thing,
You want to think
just
of
the part about the per diem,
Oh, sure. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
because it names.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kelsey, we just put the part for the per diem.
and that's gonna affect all of us because sooner or later, we committees move around. You know, so the committee that I'm on, somebody else might be on that same committee then a year from now or 2 years from now or whatever. And so it does affect every one of us if we have to make some decision. And I can go either way on that.
Melissa, do you have, or who, yeah, do you have the language on that?
Yep, we do.
Take note. So then we can
Okay.
mark that.
Yeah, that's good.
So I don't have to worry or feel guilty that
so we're gonna be
Putting the box around,
And
F.
you can take it.
So we're gonna drop that last paragraph, Steve, and insert the per diem language out of that resolution from 2020. All right, county board budget.
I understand where you came from and do it.
The county board has allocated an annual budget which includes salary, per diem, benefits. Again, we should probably take out per diem, benefits, conferences, meetings, and related expenses, i.e. telephone, office. Um, Is that okay, just the way it is?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what your edits were.
I did talk about any edits. I just read, the county board is allocated an annual budget which includes, oh yeah, we could strike the per diem.
Strike the per diem, yeah.
I just had a question at that. I think, didn't we do something talking about, individually how much, we have a budget as a board. And I understand we need a budget, to go forward. But to break that budget, do we break that budget down per person? And I think we should look at the board budget for, saying, well, you can only go to these many conferences or type of thing. As a board, we discuss that. And I don't think we need details. And along that same line, I looked at, it was really good, that link at the end of the AMC one. I don't know if you had a chance to, they did the survey, and that's where all this is coming from for the AMC packet, and how they got these surveys. And about 40 counties only replied to that survey. But what I saw under board general expense allowances, only 4 counties actually have something like that. And my thought is, we have a budget. If some person doesn't do a lot of things, he said, we can stay as a board and have a discussion. Well, okay, it's really important you accomplish these things, and you're really good at that. Do it, as long as we try to stay in our budget, of course.
I use my budget to Commissioner Gardner to go,
Well,
whatever.
well, I'm not sure we have that authority, but as a board, I think
Yeah.
we should look at that. Like if somebody, and we can leave it in there, but if I feel if a commissioner comes up and says, hey, I was allocated this many dollars, but I really want to do this. This is important for this reason. As a board, we could discuss this and say, that's okay. Kelsey, you're looking at me. Not okay?
We don't allocate.
Oh.
Typically, all 5, we don't allocate individual budgets.
Okay, we don't.
Allocate that. Typically, you go on the past trend that all 5 of you typically, and this isn't always common, all 5 of you typically attend all conferences, and so you take that average and then you put that in. So it's, I get what you're saying, but we don't allocate, and we're looking at the reports. We don't allocate a budget for Roger and a budget for Dwayne, and
Okay.
it's not
Well, but I'm just, go ahead.
What might make more sense is, and where this comes in, and I think what Corky's talking about, is out-of-state travel.
As far as what?
Oh, wait till you're done.
as far as what.
Because where Corky is talking about, I use the term yielding your budget to somebody else, is when, so if Steve wants to go to NACO legislative conference and Corky doesn't want to, and as a board we're feeling, well, it's about Corky's turn, whatever, then Corky says, I'm really not interested in out-of-state travel, why don't one of you guys go? We might be better off just saying, like Renville County allows 3 out-of-state travel a year for their commissioners. And Dave Hamry recently wanted to go to Western Interregional, and they had to suspend their rules in order to allow him to go. And I don't know, they may have also put a caveat on it that he had to pay a bigger share. I don't know how they handled it.
I just wonder if this conversation needs to be addressed in this particular document. I think it's a discussion worth having, but I just wonder, for our purposes here, we're just kind of outlining the bones.
Where would you put those, Steve, if it's not in here?
What?
Maybe during your budget discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to anticipate, what.
Well, and
Put a cap on out-of-state travel?
Yeah, I don't think we do. That's why.
Not dollar-wise, maybe, but I mean, otherwise, one day you're gonna get a commissioner who's gonna be going someplace all the time. Like, dang.
But as a board, we can, but maybe, Commissioner Gardner, your comment too. As a board, I think we can decide that. If some commissioner is really doing all these, well, we can just say, hey, you've been going to a lot of these. Let's talk about that,
Mhm.
And I haven't gone to one for a while, so I'm planning to go. So,
Mhm.
you know, we, as a
I
board, we
think-
should.
I think we do bring it up, because we bring it up about NACO,
Mhm.
or not.
So maybe,
But we should have a policy about, does the board have to approve doing one today?
No, but the board can always can be put on the agenda if one board member feels, hey, sorry, you've been going to all these meetings. Do you really need to go to those meetings? Because I think this is going to break our budget, and I really want to go here. And we have a discussion where we work out. And then, for example, then you could say, well, because of this and that, and that's on this committee, and I'm on the AMC, and this is really, oh, well, then I understand. Or the other way around, or we just say,
So I always.
we go over budget this one time.
So my theory always is that in the co-op world, we actually had this happen. So I know
Okay.
what Roger's talking about. But you just go back to common sense. And if you don't have common sense, it needs to be put on the agenda, it needs to be hammered out. And that's just the way it has to be. And it's a ugly conversation, but that's what you have to.
But you can prevent those, when I was,
No, because otherwise you're really restricting somebody from doing what their mission is for being a county commissioner or any other thing.
I think for me, the limiting factor is when I go to these conferences, like, especially out of state, it costs me money, because my wife wants to go.
Right.
It costs me a lot more than it costs the county, out of my own pocket. And so,
And that would
unless
be like-
somebody were to really abuse it,
Right.
I mean.
It would be like saying then, Roger, you can't go to AMC. I mean, you really don't want to do that because that's your ambition to do it.
well, that's why we might be better off seeing 2 or 3 or 4 out-of-state trips a year. I mean, here's the problem, Dale, with what you're suggesting, because this happened to me in the dairy heifer raising. If you don't address it in the contract, and you end up in a pissing match over some question about, I brought a heifer back that was, not as close to calving as what the contract read. Now you got an ugly conversation, as they're saying. But if you address it ahead of time, it's clear, it's right in the policy.
But then you have those times, then you're going to be suspending the rules more than you're not because it just happens that one person wants to go more than another person, and then you're going to have to suspend the rules because they can't do it.
I think if you're gone all the time,
But let me ask you
have
guys,
to be- your constituents are gonna know.
You bet.
And then you're gonna be held accountable.
but let me ask you, in our total years that we've been here, and I've been here 12, do you know anybody who's traveled more than out of state more than? I'm not sure I know anybody who went twice. I might have gone twice one year to Washington the same year.
Yeah, and
But I don't
You
think.
and
But I.
You and Dwayne typically, since
Right.
I've been here in the 2 years, go twice.
But
I don't know if you,
Well, I go
If you go-
once.
yeah, you go once, you go twice.
yeah. So what I'm saying, even in the year when I went to Washington twice, I didn't go to NACO that year.
Mhm.
So
Muddy the water.
we just don't travel on state. If you set it at 3, to suspend the rules would be pretty rare when you'd have to do that.
Well, you wouldn't have to suspend the rules. You just write it, you could write it as to a limit, and then anything above requires full board approval,
Do it that way.
which would never, that's not suspending the rules.
Right. That would be a good way to do it, Shane. Yeah.
I really see this coming in, for example, let's say you're the chair of AMC,
Yep.
and all of a sudden you're on NACO committee then. You're gonna be gone a lot. And that as a board, we'd have to kind of address that and say, you're doing the good of the cause for the state,
So
and we
if you're
just
on
have.
the NACO board, who pays for that? Is that NACO?
Not enough. It don't cover.
this,
the
in a way,
But they cover a portion of
cost. They just raised it from 3,000 per trip, and you're required, if you're a NACO, if you're on the NACO board, you're required to attend 3 NACO events a year.
That's what I was going to
regardless of
say.
where they're at.
If
And at $3,000 per diem you don't even come close to that.
3,000 per year?
No, per trip, but it won't cover it. If you're there 5 days, your hotel room's gonna be almost $2,000. So what in that case, what some counties do is they pick up the difference for that NACO member. But Shane, would you repeat what you were saying before?
I think the way you said,
County members may, let's see.
Was about, you had a number for the number of outstate,
I don't want to limit it. I don't know if you can do it. No, go ahead. I'm just talking out loud and thinking.
I guess I'm just thinking it out, or thinking.
Yeah.
it here.
board members shall have 3 out-of-state opportunities for 3 out-of-state travels if they choose. Anything above that would need board approval.
Yeah. Basically that. And the board approval, I mean, if there's someone on a special committee or position, you don't need to approve it each time they travel. You could just go right in.
Only when they
Since
go
their
to the
president- No, their president have one resolution saying all out of state travel while for that duty is approved. It'd be case by case, which also addresses what you want and not making the whole complex policy in this document. You can say that for outer conversations.
So what would you put in here then?
No, what you, kind of what you said.
Yeah.
But if
Board members shall be allowed 3 out-of-state travel
Yeah.
opportunities per year.
opportunity,
Beyond that,
any more opportunities shall require board approval.
Beyond 3
make
requires
it simple. Yep.
And then if you get into the nitty gritty of special circumstances, that can be board conversation by resolution, like the per diem or salary or anything else outside this document.
And to that point, wouldn't we almost be better off to handle those on a case-by-case basis by resolution? Rather than cementing something in this document and then having to amend that later?
I think that goes more to Dale's point, which is he wouldn't want the tyranny of the board preventing any one member from taking opportunity.
And
This gives us a lot of,
At least you get a couple opportunities on your own, but anything prevents the abuse of the
Out-of-state
Well,
travel,
and-
whatever we said.
Well, again, going back to, an earlier conversation, we're talking about, the idea that we expect honesty, integrity, commitment, all of those types of things. So to Dale's earlier point, it's kind of almost a common sense thing. If we see that someone is, jumping at the bit and maybe, maybe they've gone on 3 out-of-state trips already and, they want to go, well, I want to do this and that one too. It's, we can internally put the brakes on that, I think.
Do you want to be that person to have, if it's in writing?
I have no
They-
problem
If
telling,
it's in writing, they know what.
If it's a NACO thing though, does the county pay any per diem on that? Or does the county pay anything for that NACO meeting?
I don't know
We
if
do?
we've ever had.
On a pocket reading.
No, he's talking about if you're on
If
the
you're on a committee on
AMC,
NACO,
if you're on the AMC NACO, if you're a NACO representative on AMC. I don't think we've ever had one, not in my time.
sure. I was just thinking, does this go back to the fact that it's not out of the county's pocket, but it still does.
That would be one where you make a special, if somebody gets named to the NACO board, that would be one where we would bring it up as a resolution. If we were going to settle those costs.
but our practice now, Kelsey, is to reimburse expenses for for folks who are attending NACO conferences. So that includes the hotel, that includes transportation, so on and so forth.
Any out-of-state travel. Yeah. All right, so are we okay with Shane's language?
Well,
You got
You want to read it back, Melissa?
Has board members has the opportunity to have 3 out-of-state travel opportunities, all other out-of-state travel will need board approval.
Sounds good.
it's kind of keeping an eye on.
I might have said board members are
We
limited,
can wordsmith.
are limited.
Yeah.
Yeah,
put that.
So we can put a box, we can put a box around that.
I think we all want the same thing as a matter of wording it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so, I mean, it could be could have the opposite effect. because,
Yes, exactly. We don't want that to
now
happen.
you want to increase.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where the honesty and integrity comes in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're all within the rules.
No, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It just goes back
I
to,
know.
it can go, it
Before I
can,
always felt like I had to get approval.
yeah.
Now I don't, because now I can go.
Hey, I can go on 3 and I don't have to answer.
Yeah, so, I don't know. And, yeah,
You look at it any way you want, it's still, it goes back to the honesty and common sense.
But this is gonna help avoid that.
I mean,
Uncomfortable
it gives a
conversation
Because you're allowed three.
Yeah.
And if you're allowing 3, that's gonna
So,
up your budget automatically. 'Cause
If
then you
everybody
have to-
uses
Well,
You have to put it in the budget, cause you said 3.
Yep.
you.
Yeah, but you don't know which ones they are.
Yeah, I know, but I understand what Kelsey's saying.
So now you're gonna have to take, let's say it's, what is our, policy, 3,000 right now? Up to 3,000 reimbursement, for those out-of-state trips. Well, now you gotta take 3,000 times 15 and add it to the budget, yes?
Well,
No.
no, it's part of doing the budget. You just,
Yeah,
yeah,
you have
on
to see
the,
how the first year would go, and then if you have,
And you base it on history. If
yeah.
you do a budget, you base it on what's your history.
So you just might want to add one more trip to
Yeah.
that, to the budget
Yeah.
if needed. Or we do go, that year we go over budget and we have to find the money out in another pot, I think, to cover that. I think
They're just
I
gonna
think we
be
beat this to
done
the
for
ground quite a
reasons
bit.
like.
I think we all want the same thing and that we were just talking about.
Okay, so Roman numeral 4, county board meetings. General policies. Letter A. We didn't circle it, we circled B, but not, general policies. The following general policies apply to all meetings of the county board. Cell phones shall be put on silent, not vibrate or ring. Business casual attire or better shall be required for all staff and board members. I put a couple question marks behind that because business casual attire gets more and more casual every day. And I have worn a tie a lot less this past year than I did, the previous 10. And
I just kind of wonder if we really even need those 2 points.
Thank you.
Yeah.
just get rid of them.
Yeah. Cell phones, we jokingly say it's going to cost us $20 or 25 or whatever. But I think, and we remind each other.
On the attire thing, I just don't want somebody coming in here in sweatpants.
You're also held accountable by your constituents.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're dressed like a slob.
And it's so
They're never here.
yeah.
Yeah, but well, there are once in a while.
And when we sit back here, or somebody show up in shorts.
Yeah.
And no, we do have that in our handbook.
Well,
Staff.
so we have
I
had
did
that.
go to Naples with shorts on, but they're dressed.
Yeah, I mean that's but at a board,
but if Dwayne shows up in shorts,
you better not get up.
but he's gonna be still a good commissioner. It does,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't affect me, but it wouldn't affect. As long as you're still acting as a good commissioner, it doesn't matter to me what you
Oh,
are.
but
I guess it's more for the position.
Yep.
Well, some of our joint power committees, I mean, it's unbelievable. People come dressed,
Well, yeah.
and talking about shorts. Even in the wintertime, there's somebody that, yes, wearing shorts. All right,
But I think that's
but
per
he's a good
county's
commissioner. Yeah,
view,
exactly.
because Stearns County does not wear anything more than what we're wearing right now to any meeting. They do not wear a tie, ever. So I think it's up to the county more than it is up to.
So like Randolph County, I think it's suit and tie.
Yeah.
Or a coat and tie.
Well, and I'm old school. I kind of like that idea that we do look more professional. And it's not that you're unprofessional if you don't dress that way.
The way I do it, I usually go by what I'm gonna be doing after the meeting. To,
Yeah.
it's hard to
That
have
happens.
salt or something.
Yeah. I'm going to a new Hunter Spicer athletic event tonight, so
Well-
I'm doing the same thing here.
Well, okay.
So,
So what do you?
I'm just gonna ask you if your ears were burning through.
oh,
all
yeah.
Are we gonna strike it or leave business because business casual has gotten really, really casual.
I think you should strike it. people would do what they need to do for their own personal beliefs, and that's the way.
All right, I can live with that. I'm not gonna fall in love over it, but, so letter A gets removed. All right, and, you can put a box around it because we dealt with it. Regular meetings, that one we circled, statutory meeting, we circled, open meeting law. Letter D under Roman numeral 4. Actually, let's take a 5-minute break, okay?
I wanna hear that.
I have a question, and I think we answered that very recently, Shane. Members of the, talking about, interactive television as long as the following conditions are met by statute. Number 2, members of the public present at each location can see and hear all discussions, testimony, votes of the commissioners. My note says, can we still do this? And obviously we still can. Do the interactive.
Do we have to break it all down, the open meeting law, or just cite the open meeting law?
Well, I guess my question on this is, when this was written, this was pre-Zoom, so interactive TV is almost something a little different, isn't it, than remote meetings now? Or is it just, a distinction without a difference?
The
think-
statute uses the word technology, interactive technology.
So just
That could be a word, one word change you could make
Okay.
there.
catch that, Melissa.
No, I'm sorry, just came back.
Instead of interactive TV, strike television, put technology.
And this section, while I'm speaking, has one section missing that's in the statute. And that says that all votes are conducted by roll call, so each member's
That's true. The roll call.
on each issue can be identified and recorded.
And
And that's specific, I mean, all these other things are right from,
Statute.
right from the statute, so that one was inadvertently missed, but should be added.
So with that change in addition, we can check the box, make the box.
Before we go on to the next one, I'd just like to make a comment to everybody too. Is I know, and I can perceive at times the struggles doing this or whatever, impatience or whatever. But I think the most important thing we're doing here today is that we're doing this together, and everybody gets a chance to have some input. And to me, that's going to be more valuable than what we're doing. That we're building relationships with each other. That yes, that somebody may sound really stupid in my own opinion or whatever, but we're listening to each other and that everybody talk to them, and that we do go through this and accomplish those goals. And I think the end product, we can all then have ownership in it as well. It's, part of that leadership training that we all have done over the many years of leadership training we've had. That sometimes we have to kind of dig in and do things that we think, well, this is no big deal or whatever. But I think it's important what we're doing. I'm really glad that we're doing this, and enough said. Okay.
All right, thank you. Next closed meetings, that was circled. Letter F, special emergency meetings. Procedures to schedule any special or emergency meeting shall be in accordance with the Minnesota statute 13D.04. Emergency meetings may be called, and a good faith effort to provide a notice of the meeting shall be made by telephone or written message. Special meeting shall be preceded by 3 days. Is this all statute? Must be. The county board, yeah, I guess that's really all I had on that.
I had a question mark by members of the county are entitled to 10 days notice of board meetings. But that's in reference to that.
On the one that Kelsey gave us, it's are entitled to at least 3 days.
That's what it says in this one too.
Yeah, but
Preceded by 3 days notice.
Down.
Fifth paragraph.
Yeah.
Oh. So you just put.
Pop a meeting.
so I think for me, I think that one probably should be parked and we come back for another conversation on it.
What?
Because there's some things I would like to have a conversation on about, how we arrive at,
What meetings we have.
yeah, how we arrive what meetings we have. Going on to letter G, and if we get time yet, we can come back to it. Public hearings. From time to time, the county board conducts formal public hearings. In addition to those required by law, the county board may hold public hearings on matters of business when it decides that such hearings are in the best interest of the general public or issues under consideration. The order of business for public hearings generally follows this procedure. 1. Presiding officer opens the hearing and states the purpose. 2. Brief description of the issue by county staff or other appropriate persons. 3. Presentation, if applicable, by affected or interested persons. 4. Open comments by members of the general public. 5. Reading of written comments submitted. 6. Public hearing closed by resolution or motion. Discussion by the county board, decision by the county board. At any time during the process, the county board may address any questions as deemed appropriate. The county board chair may alter the public hearing procedure as needed to assure that the hearings are conducted in an orderly, fair, and expeditious manner, including establishing reasonable time limits of 3 to 5 minutes for speakers. And that's what I underlined right there, but let me finish reading and I'll go back. Individually or on each side of the issue before the board. Additional time to speak can be approved by consensus of the board. Rules adopted for public hearing procedures are intended to promote an orderly discussion, to give every person an opportunity to be heard, and to ensure that no individual is embarrassed by exercising the right to free speech. Individuals making comments shall first give their full name and address. This is required for an official record of the public hearing. The reason why I underline limits of 3 to 5 minutes, I don't have a problem with that, but I think we should put in there that someone can't yield their time to somebody else. And sometimes you get 5 people, 10 people with the same, and the next person gets up and say, "I'll yield my time to Dwayne because Dwayne's a better spokesman," or something like that. 'Cause then we could hear 30 minutes. Thoughts?
It seems reasonable. I think, if you're by and large leaving it up to the presiding officer, typically they're going to, allow that, and typically I see 3 minutes, 3 to 5, whatever it is, that's,
That part I'm okay with. It's yielding to
almost
somebody
immaterial.
else.
But yeah, the yielding to someone else so that they can continue pontificating. And when we start talking also about providing citizen forums, I think we're going to have this same sort of discussion here as well.
Does that
How-
come up here somewhere?
How do we balance the public's right to be heard? And it's much more structured within public hearings. But how do we balance that with, someone who, just wants to pontificate every 2 weeks? If they want to do that, they should be running for the board.
How would we word that? Shane, you got any wordsmithing ideas? So no member of the public,
Just on the yielding part?
yeah, no member of the public yield their time to a previous speaker?
Say,
May
May not,
may not yield their time to another.
to a previous speaker.
Why would you say previous?
say speaker
Speak
to another.
I want to make it,
No speaker may yield time to another.
Well,
right,
I could yield my time to Dwayne if Dwayne hasn't already spoke.
Well, but Dwayne.
No, you're not talking about you're not talking about the chairs themselves.
No, I'm talking about in a public hearing.
Yeah.
Because, Dwayne's a better spokesperson than I am. I'll say, Dwayne, you talk on that.
Yeah, but if I was.
I thought you said you didn't want that.
Oh, well, Sarah.
Yeah, you'd only get the one opportunity.
I thought you didn't want that.
I only want one opportunity, so by doing it to a previous speaker, they're done.
I don't know why
But if-
we would allow anyone to yield their time at all.
Just
And
say,
it says individually, speakers individually.
So you're
Is
saying
that
that implies we
Or on each side of the issue.
members of the public may not yield their time to others in the room.
that was kind of to me, this is I underlined the next sentence after this because I didn't realize you had to have consensus of the board after uh, after 5 minutes. As a chair in the past, I've done this, but I've never thought I had to. It was my discretion as a chair to set that time, but what we're saying here is 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm,
But as a
same.
guideline, that's what we've always done, but I just never knew it was in writing that we have to go back to the board to extend that. I'm
Actually-
okay with that. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. But
Correct me if I'm wrong, Shane, but I think Roberts actually leaves that up to the chair.
It tends to be a chair thing.
Yep.
So rather than consensus of the
On
board,
this one, it says including establishing reasonable time limits for speakers. It doesn't say 3 to 5 minutes, so you can
it says
you
in
have a meeting where
establishing.
you have 50 people show up, then you would wanna set a time limit, but if there's 5 people, maybe don't.
I don't
You
know.
still need a time limit.
You wanna give them time, but then you don't wanna let them control the meeting either.
And it's potentially situational.
Yeah.
So I do actually prefer the language in Kelsey's document over here on this topic.
And what
Just
number-
just because it also mentions that all members interested in addressing the board are requested to sign an attendance form made available in the hearing room, because then the chair can receive that when the hearing starts, so you have an idea of how many people are going to be. So you have an idea of what potential time limits you might need to be putting on that sort of thing. I think, if you just have that document so that you can just go down the line and call people up to the podium, as needed.
Yeah, and if somebody walks in afterwards, you just have to make a mental note, that might be 1 more or 2 more.
Yeah, because as chair, you're going to say, does anyone else, did not get a chance to, you're not gonna preclude them from talking just because they didn't sign this, but it just gives the presider, I think, a little more.
I agree with the
Information.
situational thing, but I still would like to see the yield.
Yeah, the yielding, I have no problem. But I do think, I do otherwise prefer the, overall prefer the language.
Yeah, I haven't, no, that's probably a good thing, is that everybody sign in, upon entering the public hearing. Then we gotta make sure we have a sign-in sheet.
We do. Since I've been here, we do.
So we can put a box around G.
Well, are we gonna put a box around that, or are we going to consider adopting, the language in, the document that Kelsey's provided?
About the, just adding the line about signing in.
I like this overall, just because it doesn't, limit you to the 3 or 5 minutes. Again, if it's a complex topic,
What page is that on?
I think, that's 23 of 34.
I have it on your screen.
Oh, good, thank you.
You're so good, Melissa.
It by and large, covers the same points.
Yeah, but
It-
is
it
that,
does say-
is this, Kelsey's?
Yes, what's on
Okay.
your screen is Kelsey.
Where does it say the part about signing in?
The bottom.
Final paragraph. Final.
Oh,
members of-
okay, got it.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't care if you wanna,
And
but then we need still, to this, we need to add, no member of the public may yield their.
right. And the only other thing here is, it says, after the bullet points, at any time in the process, the board may address any questions as deemed appropriate. The board, and I was going to suggest that we say the chair or convener or whatever it is, may alter the public hearing procedure as needed to assure that the hearings are conducted in a fair manner. And
Where you at
that
now?
mirrors the language that you have in the document that we've been working off of.
Could we word? I do like the idea that there's some kind of guideline in there, and that we desirable, it'd be a desire to have some time limits. I think people come in here.
Mhm.
That would be up to the chair, I mean, chair.
The chair, yeah. And so that's, if we're looking at this page 23 on this other document, that second line, I would just recommend that we strike board and put in the word chair.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if the chair,
Because then that mirrors this.
mhm,
So Dwayne, here's the caveat, with not putting some time in there. You're the chair of the board. And somebody who, has talked to you out in the public and is really emotional about some topic, and you don't set a time limit.
Yeah, I know that, but what I'm saying is you have that opportunity in the one that Kelsey.
Yeah, it says so right in there.
But a chair may not do that if he's in agreement with the person who is getting up on the soapbox.
Which again goes back to the honesty, integrity, so on. and so forth.
Yeah, I know.
If you're charged,
I
if
know,
you're
but I-
charged in here,
But then you might say 7 minutes.
but you're,
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine, but something, because I remember Shane.
No, no, I take
You're
more
thinking of-
John
you're
Adams'
thinking of the-
position on this issue about you need checks and balances in these documents because you got to prepare for the person who is,
When Jim Butterfield was chair,
yeah.
some guy showed up in here, and I'm not gonna name the name, but at the time he was in the news a lot, and he talked for 25 minutes, and Jim couldn't shut him down. So that's the danger that we have if we don't,
Well, I
even if it's a higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it goes back to though, Roger, what you say when you're gonna have a hearing in here, the thing that you read, that's still the rules. So
Yep.
you always say, here's the rules for the hearing. You give the 3 to 5 minutes. That as a chair, that's your prerogative. And if you're not gonna do that, then you take that risk.
yeah,
Yeah,
but-
and then we take
yeah, right.
We take right, but that's not
Yeah.
right either.
Why you may
Because I
want
was
it in there
looking
too is when you're telling the public how much time they'll get.
Right.
Instead of the chair being perceived as being biased against that speaker or that
Yes, exactly.
You're doing,
limit, but
you're doing it
but they're
beforehand.
every single issue, every single time,
You're doing it beforehand, so it's.
whether it's 7 minutes, whatever timeline.
I mean, I was
Have a-
squirming like crazy that time when that was going on here, and it was.
was that one of those items that would today be covered by our stay in our lane? Policy?
Probably.
Probably that, yeah.
Because I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. I just think it's just a good idea for every public hearing that we put a time limit on.
Yeah,
Because we have the option of
Yeah,
going around the room again.
Yeah, and or you could, as a chair,
Mhm.
well, you've gone over, but once you take 2 more minutes, that's a lot different than saying, once they come in here and then say, well, you're gonna have to stop because you talked too long. That's gonna be really hard.
I've seen meetings where there are hard cutoffs.
Yeah.
Your time is over.
And in situations that could be too, so,
Mhm.
but you need that to start with, and then you can give some flexibility as a chair.
Yeah.
So it's still back in the chair, but I would encourage anybody who's gonna be chair that you have some time limit.
Yeah.
And it's addressed.
I mean, what I
This one does.
Yeah,
whether you put it in here or not. I mean,
And that's still addressed in this piece, in the paragraph in Kelsey's document. You may alter the public hearing procedure to assure that the hearings are conducted in an orderly, fair, expeditious manner, including establishing reasonable time limits for speakers individually on each side of the issue before the board.
Does it also?
It doesn't say necessarily 3 to 5 minutes.
Does it
I think
also
it's a
say?
practical matter.
and can we add the word encourage and reasonable time limits?
No,
Because I mean,
Established.
we're all on the same page, I understand that.
Yeah.
But, 10 years from now, or if they're still using this document, there's no time limits on it, and somebody gets on the board. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but
But do we want to add to Kelsey's document, additional time to speak can be approved by consensus of the board? That really gives you a lot of flexibility, when 2 people show up and it's an interesting conversation, kind of a thing.
say that again, Roger.
Well, there's at the end of one paragraph, it says additional time to speak can be approved by consensus of the board. Because we can look at each other and say, hey, do you have enough? Or say, no, I'd like to hear more about, what they have to say.
Well, I think, but that is also something, when the testimony is done, the board always has the opportunity to call people back for clarification on what they think
That's
they
Robert's
heard or
rule.
didn't hear. So I think that's, but I mean, yeah, additional time to speak. I think your language would be fine. I think just as a practical matter, I think most board chairs are going to, or most boards are going to say, I need more information. Can we have so-and-so come back?
I think I would have held that guy to its limit then. H was circled. Letter I, quorum. A quorum is necessary for transaction of business. A majority of the members of the board constitutes a quorum, and no business shall be transacted unless approved by a majority of 3 votes of the whole county board, according to statute. Less than a majority of members may convene a meeting, but no business may be transacted. Each member participating in the meeting by interactive television, let's change that to technology again. You see where I'm at, Melissa? Yeah. Shall be considered present at the meeting for purposes of determining a quorum. Any county board member who for any reason anticipates or plans an absence at any regular or special meeting is encouraged to contact the county administrator to indicate his or her planned absence. And trying to read, oh, I know what I did there, why I didn't circle it. And I also, we should say the county administrator and the board chair.
Well, the county administrator, chair.
Yeah, but it might be helpful, more in advance before. It's a respect thing as much as anything, so that the board chair realizes, okay, we're going to be, might be harder to get a consent or a vote if we're missing somebody, and especially if we're missing 2. Yeah, I don't care. It's just I think it's respectful to let the board chair know as well. Leave it, add it.
I would leave it like this because like if I were to miss a meeting, it'd probably be some emergency situation. Only have time to give a person a quick call.
Yeah.
That's how I would think about that. If you knew a week in advance, you'd almost tell everybody.
Right. Roger, can I go back one? And this is just for discussion.
Which one are we on?
Well, I want about the citizens request.
What letter?
Oh, the one we
The
were,
one just before.
yes.
And this is just me just asking because I had somebody ask me this. And I don't care. Just
Letter H or letter G?
H. So I've had people ask, and I know they do it in some counties, where they give the public a little bit of time in the beginning or the end of a meeting to speak. And I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just asking, is that a real dangerous thing to do, or is that a real good thing to do? I mean, I just want to know where everybody from experience has been with this one.
Yeah, yes to all of that.
Let me suggest that we
Or do you want to wait until the end?
yeah, that's one that I think requires.
I think we really need to flesh that one out a little.
Yeah, and I'm fine. I just have had a couple people ask over the year,
Mhm.
is there an open time for people to come and speak? And I just say no.
Yeah. So, but do we need to flesh it out more? I almost have a feeling we're all on the same page.
Well, no,
But
I
how
think
would we
we,
do it if we
I
did?
think we need to look at potential unintended consequences of this. Should there be more access and more input on the part of citizens? Yes. How do you do that effectively? We need to talk about that. I know the state of Minnesota is, maybe not looking at local units of government very well who don't have
Right.
these times, but there are also instances where you have this unfettered conversation, and to Roger's point about
Mhm.
the one who got to stand up here and espouse whatever
Right.
theories that they were working off of for 25 minutes. Um, you know, there's a balance that we need to figure out here between running effective meetings and having that public input. And I think there are some sticky wickets in there that we need to need to talk through.
I agree, and I think board, what you're talking about is public forum, and many of our committees
Right.
have that.
Right.
And I've been on both sides of that. I tend to lean towards, that's a citizen right.
I look at it as, I mean, that's a public forum, so we're Republican, we are elected to represent the people. So a democracy, that you would maybe fall more towards that, where you just allow people to talk, but I mean, we're allowed, we're elected to represent the people. And if we're not representing properly, then there's a consequence to that, and that's the elections.
Yeah.
And so they can contact us individually and
Right.
voice their concerns, and if it's a big enough concern, then we bring it up.
But do we?
That's why I
But do we bring it up? That's my.
Well,
I mean,
that's
we
up
can
to
bring it
you.
up to Kelsey, or we can bring it up, but we don't bring it up in here.
Right.
And that's where I think that is a sticky part.
But that's why I tell people when they do have a big concern, I say contact all the commissioners, or contact the administrator.
So let me suggest this, that we move beyond H, but we mark that as something for.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Give us a chance to look at what other counties are doing that
Well,
have that public forum thing.
I think we need a short work session someday if we're gonna do this.
I
I
To-
just
to-
don't want to go down that path.
No, and that's where I'm fine either way. I mean, I've asked more for Kelsey's opinion because you're the one that has to put up with the wrath of whatever happens in a public forum.
Well, for a lot of people though, it's an issue of lack of transparency and lack of access.
Right.
We're not getting, you aren't gonna let me come and say my piece, and it's like,
Well, I keep, go ahead.
but it
Sorry.
does have pitfalls.
Yeah, for example, let's say that we have an open forum that we allow, but do we decide that we're going to do that outside of, maybe ahead of our regularly scheduled
Well, that's what
meeting?
I mean.
And if that's the case, then, are the cameras on? Are the microphones on? Or, I mean, what are those procedures? Because what I want to prevent against are what I'll call frequent flyers,
Yeah.
okay, who are going to stand up here at every cotton picking meeting and they're going to take their 3 minutes or whatever it is and lambast whoever, staff, us. I mean, we can take it, that's fine, but I'm going to be protective of our staff, certainly. Or just, maybe they have a particular axe to grind, a political viewpoint that they want. And if we're going to offer this needs to be in response to actual concerns that people are having about their county government. And so
Yeah, so
we need to dive a little deeper into it.
Well, and we can leave it the way it is. I don't have a problem with that. I was just.
For now, but I think before we're done with this entire document, we go back to that conversation and have something.
That's literally a single topic meeting
Yes,
for us.
and I really feel we do need to look at this more. Looking at the counties, and maybe I didn't count exactly right, but I think I did. 16 of the counties in that survey out of the 40 have some form like this, and we've all experienced too, talking to some other counties that do it, and the ones who are successful really have it laid out how they proceed going through that. And it's I think that's the trend, that the public has. We don't want to lose the public. We can look at big elections or whatever. If the public is going in this direction, that we're not being transparent, that this would be a step in that direction. But it's got to be so structured. It's got to be so structured and laid out right.
And I think there was an article in the Star Tribune this last summer. Within the last 6 months or so, that kind of took counties to task a little bit, counties specifically, on this. So I think
part of
we.
being transparent would be when they call you and ask you about something, you help them find a solution.
Oh, no question. If we're not doing that,
So if we're not doing it, then that's why so you got a problem before you get to where you need to have help. You got a
Yeah.
problem,
And
then you're not representing.
Well,
and if we did a good job, they don't come to the meeting.
That's
But,
right.
but the challenge, Dwayne, is that, let's say somebody talks to me and says, look, I want to come to the public forum, or they just show up if we allow that. They wanna talk about even our stay in the lane policy thing.
Mhm.
They can talk all they want
Mhm.
in whatever time we give them. But if I don't want them to come there, then I can just sweep that under the rug. And nobody ever heard that, you know. That's my
But if
concern.
there's something boiling up, you'll find out.
Yeah.
I mean, you will.
Mhm.
You'll be addressing.
I just really
So
am
I don't-
concerned about the optics of not being
But that's
transparent.
what letters to the editor are for. and open mic.
But they want to be able to talk the whole board. I think well, we're going to talk about it later, but yeah, I think we have to look at this more.
I mean, the big thing that I've seen, at least in my experience with the co-op side, is there's gonna be a law passed that we're gonna have to have open forum. We aren't gonna have a choice. They're
It's
gonna
going
have,
that
they're
way.
gonna have a right.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. We got to kind of prepare for this,
Yeah.
for sure, if nothing else.
That's my only reason really for asking, is
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I had 2 people call in the last month and have asked, "Hey, can we come talk to the board?"
Yeah.
And I just say, "No, you can call Kelsey."
And I've had that. Yep.
Right,
They can call the individuals.
right.
Let me suggest that because what is
We
it?
can leave
Is
it,
it 10 to 11 or 7 to 11? And
Oh, I
so
got-
we only get a few minutes left.
we gotta keep going. No, we'll leave it for another time. I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole discussion, obviously.
You
So, the next thing would be, county administrator. The county administrator or designee shall attend all meetings of the county board. The county administrator represents the staff at meetings. The county administrator may participate in the discussion or recommend a resolution or action to the county board. A member of the board may call on the county administrator to participate in the discussion or provide a verbal recommendation on any subject pending before the board. The county administrator or designee shall prepare a written agenda for all regular and special meetings. The county administrator or designee also records the vote of each member on any questions submitted to the board, preserves and files all business acted upon by the board, certifies under sealed of the county copies of any and all resolutions of decisions by the board, performs such further duties as designated by the board, and leads collaborative efforts across the county departments, county agencies, and across county lines. The only thing noted there is the county administrator or designee shall prepare a written agenda um, in conjunction with the chair or with the chair for all regular and special meetings. And essentially, we're doing that. You send it to me, or whoever's chair at the time. You send it to them on Thursday afternoon for approval. Yeah.
Well, I don't know necessarily that it's the purview of the chair to approve. I think, certainly, the administrator is doing the day-to-day running of the county, and they know what business that needs to be transacted. And yeah, I guess I would be taking a little more hands-off approach to that. If there's something that I want to see on the agenda, we can have that discussion, and potentially we can work something out to have it on a future date. I'm just talking out loud here, but I don't know that we want to hamstring the county administrator by requiring approval by the board chair. I think that's just a little bit of a stretch.
I'd like to hear Kelsey what she thinks of this, but first, I would like to see that there's a collaborative effort between
Maybe
the
approval
board
from
chair and the administrator, that they collaborate on this.
Yeah,
And
and I
because
think
at
that's
the time,
true.
the chair wants maybe to really do something that's important, or Kelsey may want something really important. And we have to have some kind of collaborative effort there, that there's that respect, and that the chair does have some input into that agenda. I think it's important. When I talk to commissioners from all the other counties, I rarely ever hear that, just the opposite. Like what you're saying, that this hands off, the administrator runs everything. We put the the agenda together and that's not happening here. I'm not saying it is, but the chair is very involved in a lot of the other counties I've worked with. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah,
Robert's rules actually states that.
Yeah.
That
So,
the
but
secretary or the administrator, whatever your clerk, secretary, the term, shall, with the chair,
but not asking the board chair for approval.
No, approval was probably.
Because what happens in the statutes is the county administrator prepares and puts in the agenda. Basically, you're passing the baton then, once the agenda goes out to the board chair, because then on that Tuesday morning, then the board chair is in charge of the agenda. And the board is to amend and make any changes. So what I had in my document is the county administrator, clerk of the board shall prepare an agenda and supporting material for each regular and special meeting. Members of the board may request an item to be placed on the agenda by informing the clerk. Prior to finalizing the agenda, the clerk may seek review from the chair of the proposed agenda and schedule of business. So what I have typically done is if the board, in the previous county, I did have 3 different board chairs. Only one of them wanted to see the agenda. The others were like, you know what, if you feel that there's something that you want us to know or you want me to know, I'd like to know ahead of time, but if not, send it out and then we'll talk Monday. So really, I do feel like I would always send a screenshot or like, here's what's on it. But I think it's really up to the current board chair on what they are wanting. You know, it might be, you know, if Corky, you were the board chair, you might say, Kelsey, send it out, let's meet on Monday to review it. You know, where I just send a PDF to Roger. I mean, that's kind of what has worked. But I guess because you can only see the agenda, you can't see the packets.
I think this addresses it.
Mhm. And so I do think it does say seek review from the board chair in the other document.
Yeah.
Which we can kind of work together, which I do like. I mean,
And this is more open too, because it says members of the board, so it's not just the chair, it's all of them.
But she has to be careful about open meeting law too.
no. If just so really before it's like if to me it feels like what Dwayne is saying. I do sometimes feel that other members can't request items to come on the agenda. It's really more the chair here.
Mhm.
And so I do like the language that I put in there so that any
Mhm.
member of the board can request to put items. And how I do that, I'll use the cannabis for an example. So like I had heard from Dwayne, Kelsey, are we gonna talk about a cannabis ordinance? Kelsey, are we gonna talk about, and I'd be like, no, I'm only hearing from you. Then I got it, now, you know, Steve, and if I hear from 2 members to bring something up, then I bring that up. And I've talked with Roger on that a little bit. Like, if it's just 1, do we need to bring it up, or does there need to be 2? That's how I work through my process. If I hear it from more than 1, then I'll put it on there.
Okay.
So then I'm getting more of a feeling that commissioners are asking.
but-
So really, what we're talking about is, this is the subject of placing an agenda item on, rather than just approving the agenda.
So
Yeah.
if one person wants something on there but the administrator does not feel that you want to hear from 2 people wanting that on there.
That's my that's how I work. That's
Yeah.
not something that should be black and white.
But that's not how Robert's rules says.
But what you're saying then is, if it's not on the agenda, then when the chair asks for approval of the agenda, you could add it then. And I really don't want to add something after. I would like to see the administrator work through something like this before I put something on there.
Otherwise, you're kind of
So-
blindsided.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, I know, so that'd be one way to deal with it, that the board then adds that agenda, but I don't think that's a good idea neither. So that's where there's gotta be this collaboration, that there are gonna be times that one commissioner, and as an administrator, that one commissioner may come to you with something that's quite
But
important.
you're requesting doesn't mean it's gonna be put on.
Yeah, right, because I have to
You may
respect that, like
request
after,
that
but maybe it'd be on the agenda the next time then,
So-
we don't know.
So I really think we should separate this a little. This is approval
Okay.
of the agenda. And just either leave it the way it is, letter M, because placing items on the agenda is kind of like, what was the previous one? We said we need to have more public forums. We might want to have more conversation probably to
Yeah.
get something on the agenda
Yeah,
and treat that as a
But
separate.
this is that requesting, and that
No,
doesn't
but-
say that you're putting on.
But Kelsey's language does cover how you get something on the agenda. So I'd rather use this leave it just the way it is, or just say in conjunction with the board chair,
So,
and then have a separate conversation about placing items on the agenda.
so what I'm hearing, Kelsey, what you're saying is that really as a board member, I think this might, I'd like to see this on the agenda. I should probably go to one other commissioner and say, hey, would you support me in this? And we both would talk to you. Is that what you're saying is a good way to get something on the agenda? Because
Yeah,
this is
it's
kind
just
of
a
new to
conversation.
me. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, because I've never done that before, saying, well, I have to get another commissioner to agree with me.
no, and you shouldn't have to. I think it just depends on each situation.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's,
Okay.
let's either not box this one off, and let's have a conversation about placing items on the agenda.
This is another one that.
I think that's a,
common sense.
I think that's too, I don't know if that needs to be vetted out anymore. I mean, it's,
Well, I have some questions and some ideas on agenda items too. So I'd like to have more conversation about it. We got time for one more?
So just
What do you wanna-
to clarify, we're leaving M alone for now?
Or just leave it as is without the approval language that I suggested?
That I would be comfortable with.
I just think in the MACA world right now, we talk a lot about this and I sit on the executive committee. It's a really slippery slope when you start putting things in black and white on how you add things to the agenda, because that is the role of the clerk of the board and administrator.
Yeah.
And so I think they're just, if it.
It's
if
also the privilege of the board members, and it's right in Robert's rules how you can add items to the agenda.
That's during the meeting.
It's
Right,
during
Robert
the meeting.
rules
But
are
that's
pretty
where
good.
you blindside that deal says.
Yep, I don't want to do that.
I don't want to blindside either. I'd rather have a process for which we get something on the
But then
agenda.
that has to be voted
It does, yep.
on. So
Then you have a discussion.
if you feel like you're blindsided, you would say no.
But there could be a discussion, and then the person who wants to put that on there, well, here, I'm not gonna blindside you, here's all the information, and that goes on for half an hour in a conversation, we don't want that to happen, no.
Yeah.
But, I think it's a good conversation, actually, I think to have this discussion, this is really just, it helps me understand where everybody's coming from.
Being we're almost out of time, I guess the one question I have, and this is gonna have to be decided, is how do we blend what Kelsey handed out with
Mhm.
what we're working on? Because this has to blend, or it has
Well,
to
I
be
think-
one or the other.
I think we're doing that. I think we're
Melissa
doing
is doing this. We're.
Well, I'm just asking, just so I have it in my head.
So, on conduct of,
We're not taking one or the other.
we got 2 minutes. And so we boxed as county administrator just as it is without any additional language.
Okay,
On conduct of debate, under principles, I underlined, and I don't know why I did, but I did. It's a real short one. The rules of parliamentary practice embodied in Robert's Rules of Order shall govern the board in all cases applicable, except as modified by the rules herein and applicable by Minnesota statutes. I agree with that. I don't know why I underlined it, maybe because I agree with it. But maybe I want to bring up this point that we, and it's not stated here, but it's been assumed all these years that we operate by Robert's Rules of Order, the latest edition of Robert's Rules of Order. But any policy we set within here can override Robert's Rules. And so that's what this is saying. And, and Shane, I think maybe we should go maybe a way in the beginning that the board operates, or maybe it isn't. I think it might be that we operate under Robert's Rules.
Mhm.
So that probably should go away in the beginning someplace. But unless otherwise stated, or allowed for by policy or statute, the board shall operate by Robert.
You could work that into that item B, statement of principles, first paragraph.
It should almost be at the beginning of the document. Anyway,
That
yeah, I see
that
what
would
you're
do
saying.
that.
so I think we can, or leave it right where it's at.
Mhm.
So we can put a box around A, there's a circle around B and a circle around C, and I'm gonna declare this meeting over. Is that okay with everybody?
I would like, if I could ask just a clarifying question, so we maybe have information ready. Can you maybe give me some background or reasoning on why you need more discussion on the special emergency meetings?
Yeah, I just want to flesh out, maybe doing more of them and how we do them. So,
I'm kind of curious as to, you know, what a special meeting definition is. You know, is it simply a work session? Is it some other thing that comes up that is non-emergency? You know, I think we need to be a little intentional about, you know, differentiating between work sessions, special meetings. Emergency, certainly, we already know that we have policies in place for that. But differentiating between those two, I think, is potentially important.
so anyway, we'll pick up, and I won't be chair, Steve will be.
Yeah, I have it in mind.
We'll pick up with Roman numeral
I have it.
Roman numeral 5, letter D. Where we are.
Letter D
It's under D, board meetings.
and, oh,
There it is.
9, 10, there.
All right, so Corky, you got another meeting. We have a meeting at 3:45.
Mine isn't,
2:45.
mine's at 1 o'clock, so.
We're sitting in on an interview.
Hey, if anybody needs a calendar, I got 2 of these sent to me because I requested it, so if any